Hello, everybody. Hello again. And I hope you're very well wherever you are in the world. And I've come back again to read you another chapter of the book that I wrote, Molly Moon's Incredible Book of Hypnotism. This is it here. And I am Georgia Byng, the person who wrote the book, and there are other books after it, but I'm just reading you from this book. And today I've got an amazing sculpture for you. This is by a friend called Richard W.M. Hudson, and he's an artist who makes things with wood. He also makes pots. He's a pot maker, sort of amazing looking pots. What he does is he goes into the forest and he finds bits of wood that take his interest, and he takes them back home or to his studio, and then he leaves them in the sun, or maybe he drenches them, he burns them, he cuts them, he does all sorts of things to them until they start to make something that he thinks is brilliant and that he wants to keep making, and then he eventually makes beautiful things like this. So I love this, and this is one of his sculptures. It's a very magical looking thing. We all need a bit of magic in our lives. So here we have chapter 5 from Molly Moon's Incredible Book of Hypnotism. The next day was Friday. Molly woke at 6 in the morning, smiling from a dream that she was a world-famous hypnotist. Since then, she had been concocting a daring plan. She had no intention of going to school. She couldn't possibly go and sit in dire dishwater Toadley's lessons whilst the book, with all its secrets waiting to be learned, lay under her mattress. Besides, she couldn't leave the book unguarded. Snoopy Miss Addison might find it, and if she took it to school, Hazel would snatch it. When the morning bell went, she pretended not to wake up and kept her eyes shut, even when Rocky came to visit her. When Hazel rang the bell in Molly's ear for the second time, pulling her covers off, Molly just lay listlessly in her bed. "Brain not working, bogey," jeered Hazel. I don't feel very well," Molly moaned. Molly missed breakfast. When she was sure everyone was downstairs, she hurriedly swung into action. Jumping out of bed, she opened the bedroom window and with a pair of scissors scraped some green mildew off the stone wall into the plastic soap dish in her hand. Then she carefully mashed the chunks of green mould into a fine powder. She applied the powder to her face, giving her skin a very realistic, sickly green tinge. Afterwards, she wiped the dish and put it back by the basin. Next, she crept along to the sick room. There was a kettle, which Molly switched on. A moment later, she had filled a glass half full with boiling water and hidden it under a low armchair. Then she grabbed the metal sick bowl and placed it high up on top of a cupboard in front of the chair. Back in the bedroom, Molly rifled through her satchel and found a packet of emergency ketchup, which she'd saved for sandwiches. With this in her pyjama pocket, she got back into bed, and her trap was set. People started to return from breakfast. Gordon Boyles plodded into Molly's room. "Sick, some hope," he said. Molly heard something flicked and felt something small, nasty and damp land on her neck before Gordon left. Then Molly recognised the voices of Jerry and Gemma as they came to see her. "Bet she caught a cold. Maybe she did fall in a puddle yesterday," whispered Gemma. "Poor Molly. She's probably sick because the big kids are nasty to her," said Jerry. Shall we go and feed your mouse?" Finally, Miss Addison stomped in. "Sick, I hear," she said unsympathetically. "Well, you'd better come to the sick room." Miss Addison shook her. Molly pretended to wake up and, acting as headachy and fluey as possible, followed Miss Addison down the shabby corridor and past other children who'd come out of their rooms to stare at her. Miss Addison made Molly sit on the sick-room armchair, and taking a key from the metal chatelaine that hung around her waist, she opened a drawer, found the thermometer, and jabbed it into Molly's mouth. Molly's sweaty fingers were crossed tightly behind her back, as she hoped madly for Miss Addison to leave the room. Seconds later, her wish was granted. "I'll be back in 5 minutes. We'll see if you're sick." Sucking her false teeth, Miss Addison marched out. As soon as she was safely away, Molly found her glass of water, once boiling, now very hot, and put the thermometer in it. She watched anxiously, her heart beating fast, as the mercury rose up the stalk. That was high enough. A temperature of 42 degrees should convince Miss Addison that she was unwell. But to be sure, Molly tore open the ketchup sachet before putting it back in her pocket. Now her nerves started to set in, making Molly feel very jittery as she waited to accomplish the final part of her plan. In another minute, she heard sucking noises as Miss Addison's clipped steps showed her that she was coming back. Molly hung her head, trying to look as ill as she could. Miss Addison entered and, without speaking, roughly pulled the thermometer from Molly's mouth. Molly took a deep breath. As Miss Addison pushed her glasses up the ridge of her nose to inspect the thermometer, Molly started to grimace. Miss Addison," she groaned, making heaving movements with her body. I think I'm going to be sick." Miss Addison looked as though she thought she was about to be sprayed by a skunk. Urgently, she turned to get the sick bowl. "Where's the—" she began to ask. Then she saw it high up on the cupboard. Molly was making retching noises. And whilst Miss Addison stood on a stool to reach the bowl, Molly squirted some of the ketchup into her mouth and took a mouthful of water too. When Miss Addison stepped down with the sick bowl in her hand, Molly was ready. She seized the bowl. The fake pink sick splattered onto the steel. After a few more retches, Molly felt satisfied that the performance had been very convincing. "Sorry, Miss Addison," she said feebly. Miss Addison looked appalled. Taking a step back, she consulted the thermometer again. "Collect your things at once. Dressing gown, Miss Addison faltered. "Get your belongings, then go to the sanatorium. You've got a temperature of 42 degrees. Trust you. I hope we don't all catch it. And wash that filthy bowl. Take it upstairs with you." Molly felt like running and punching the air. So thrilled was she to have fooled Miss Addison. But she didn't show it. She shuffled dolefully back to the bedroom, put on her thin dressing gown and her slippers, took a cardigan from her drawer as well as her laundry bag, which of course held the hypnotism book. Then she made her way up the bottle green linoleum staircase that led to the sanatorium. It wasn't a proper sanatorium with lots of rooms and beds. It was just one room, up in the attic of Hardwick House, far away from the bedrooms and immediately above Miss Addison's apartment. Molly passed Miss Addison's landing with its heavy mahogany furniture and its severe portrait of her. Petula's purple cushion lay on the floor below a brown sideboard, and next to it sat a collection of small flint stones and pieces of gravel. It was Petula's particular habit, you see, to suck stones and spit them out. Beside the stones was a saucerful of chocolate biscuits. Up the stairs Molly went to the sanatorium room. She opened the door and, since the November day was a sunny one, found it was warm inside. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light that poured through the window, and dead flies lay at the bottom of the window pane. A brass bed stood against the yellow wall. Molly took the horrible plastic bottom sheet off its mattress, since she wasn't planning to wet the bed, and remade it with its cotton sheets and 2 blankets. Then she settled down to read. Molly decided to skip chapter 1, Practice on Yourself, as she was impatient and she reckoned that she'd already spent years learning to daydream and going into trances, and she turned instead to chapter 2. How to hypnotize animals. Now you have mastered the art of entering a trance, you may be ready to hypnotize an animal. Hypnotizing animals is a difficult art, more difficult than hypnotizing human beings. But if you achieve what I call fusion feeling when you are hypnotizing animals, you will recognize the fusion feeling later when you are hypnotizing people, and that will be very useful to you. If you don't get the fusion feeling, animals and people are not properly hypnotized. Step 2. Go into a trance yourself. Step 1. Step 2. In your trance, think of the animal, dog, cat, lion that you are going to hypnotize. Think about the essence of that animal. Try to become that animal. Molly shut the book and put it under her covers. She stared at the light that played on the yellow wall, and she started to transport herself into a trance, up a sort of misty slope, away from the world and into her mind. She could easily feel distant and floaty, and soon her surroundings looked like a blur, except for the light on the wall. Then Molly shut her eyes, and following the book's instructions, she thought of her animal. Petula, Miss Addison's pet dog, was the only animal in the orphanage. She would have to be Molly's subject. Think about the essence of that animal. Try to become that animal. Dr. Logan's words drifted through Molly's mind. The essence of Petula. Molly concentrated on the velvety, furred pug. She was a bad-tempered dog, spoilt and cosseted, overfed and lazy. How had she become so bad-tempered? She was the only dog Molly had ever met who was always bad-tempered. Molly saw her in her mind, her solid black-haired frame, her crooked front legs that were bent because of her fat, overweight body, her turned-up tail, her squashed face, the white mark on her forehead, her snarl, her bad breath, her bulging eyes. In her trance, Molly stared into Petula's dull, watery, squinty eyes. Closer and closer she got until Petula's eyes were the size of black snooker balls, then black basketballs, then huge black medicine balls, and then, as Petula's eyes seemed to blow up to the size of 2 black hot air balloons, Molly's mind slipped under them into Petula's doggy mind. She found herself feeling doggy. In her imagination, she felt her 4 sturdy legs, her ears, her highly sensitive nose. Molly smelled the chocolate biscuits on the floor beside her. She smelled the musty velvet cushion underneath her. This was amazing. She was actually smelling Petula's hairy cushion. Then she felt her tummy, swollen and overstuffed. She felt sick from all the chocolate biscuits that Miss Addison fed her. Ow! It really hurt. Molly knew just how Petula felt, and even found herself making a whining, growling noise in sympathy. In the distance, Molly heard Miss Addison's cuckoo clock strike 8, and she opened her eyes. So that was why Petula was such a grumpy, unfriendly dog. She had a tummy ache from eating too many biscuits. Molly felt as though a door had suddenly been opened in her head. She was stunned that she'd so easily understood Petula, and she wondered what other latent skills lay inside her, skills that Mr. Logan's lessons would enable her to use. If Molly learned every lesson in the book as quickly as this, she'd soon be an expert. For a moment, Molly faltered. Actually, she hadn't done anything yet. Maybe she'd made up Petula's feelings. Eagerly, Molly opened the book again. She'd soon see if hypnotizing Petula were really possible. All she had to do was follow step 3. And that is the end of chapter 5. I hope you enjoyed it. And maybe you can find an animal to hypnotize tonight. Anyway, wherever you are, happy hypnotizing. Until the next time I see you. Bye.